Eddard Stark entered the small hall late. The meal was already underway, but one glance told Arya everything. He'd been fighting with the council again. His shoulders were heavy, his eyes darker than usual. Jory Cassell tried to lift the mood. "So, this tourney everyone's talking about." Ned didn't smile. "Are they also talking about how much the Hand despises the idea?" Sansa's eyes lit up like a hearthfire. She begged to go, swooning over knights and princes and golden-haired charm. Septa Mordain gently reminded Ned that his daughters would be expected to attend. He nodded. Arya too then, but Arya's face twisted. "I don't want to see Joffrey," she snapped. "I don't want to go to some stupid tourney." Sansa rolled her eyes. "Nobody wants you there anyway." The silence that followed cracked like ice. Ned slammed his hand on the table. The room stilled. He glared at both girls. Then, just as quickly, the fire in him faded. He stood, weary, and walked away. Once he was gone, the guards erupted into talk of lances and bets and blood. But no one spoke to Arya. She didn't mind. She used to like hearing men talk, back home in Winterfell. But here, their voices made her sick. They'd let Micah die, let Lady die, and her father had let it happen. She pushed her food away, cold, tasteless, like everything else here. Septa Mordain noticed. "You haven't eaten." Arya didn't answer. She ran. In her room, she locked the door, dropped to her knees, dug through the chest, and there it was. Needle. Jon had given it to her true brother, the only one who saw her for who she was. If he were here, she wouldn't feel so alone. Then, softly, a knock. "It's your father," came the voice. "May I come in?" She hesitated, then opened the door. He saw the sword instantly. "Where did you get that?" "It's mine." He turned it in his hands, saw the mark from Mycon's forge. "If my daughter can arm herself from my own blacksmith without me knowing," he said, "how am I supposed to rule the Seven Kingdoms?" He asked who gave it to her. She stayed silent. She wouldn't betray Jon. "This isn't a toy," he said. "I wasn't playing." He looked like he might break it. "Maybe I should." "Needle wouldn't break," she said, fierce and certain, and that made him smile, just a little. She looked out on a world without walls, an ocean of grass stretching farther than the sky itself, the Dothraki Sea, and at its edge, Daenerys Targaryen. She was alone, but not lost, hardened by days in the saddle. The sores were gone. The pain no longer ruled her. She no longer flinched when Drogo came to her at night, not since the dream of fire, the dream of the dragon. "You're starting to sound like a queen," Ser Jorah said. "I am not a queen," she replied. "I am a Khaleesi." She rode out alone. Let the Khalasar catch up. Let her brother struggle behind. Let him see what he would never be. But rage, like Viserys, always comes crawling. He found her, screaming, grabbing, commanding her like he was still the dragon. She shoved him. For the first time in her life, she pushed back. Viserys blinked, then snarled, raised a hand. But before it could fall, Jogo's whip wrapped his throat and flung him down like a sack of rotten silk. "Shall I kill him, Khaleesi?" Jogo asked, calm as the wind. "No," she said. "Take his horse. Let him walk." And just like that, her brother lost his crown in the eyes of the horse lords. "Kill them," Viserys barked at Jorah. "She needs to be taught." But the knight turned away from the beggar prince and bowed to the Khaleesi. "Have I awoken the dragon?" she asked softly. "Your brother Rhaegar was the last dragon," Jorah said. "Viserys is less than the shadow of a snake. But he is the rightful king. Would you want him on the throne?" And in that silence, she knew. She had always known. The people cry for him. The people, Jorah said, cry for rain, for food, for summers that never end. Not kings, especially not him. She spurred her silver and left the men behind. By the time Viserys returned to camp, every rider would know. He walks. That night, a finger of light touched the dragon eggs, and for a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, she saw flames in the stone. They were warm, too warm. When Drogo returned, she led him under the open sky, not on her hands and knees. This time, she climbed on top. This time, he called her name. And at the edge of the world, on her 14th name day, her handmaid brushed her stomach and said, quietly, "You are with child, Khaleesi." Lord Commander Mormont raises his cup to the cunning dwarf and begs him to stay, while Tyrion grins and vows to scour the realm for brothers his size. Sir Alliser Thorne, sour as spoiled ale, hisses that the imp mocks the watch. Tyrion twirls his fork like a knight's lance steel enough for you, sir. And the room explodes with laughter as Thorne storms out, dinner forfeited to Tyrion's triumphant appetite. A man like Thorne, Tyrion cracks, belongs in the stables, not drilling recruits. Mormont sighs that true knights are rare. Most, like Thorne and Sir Jeremy, dodged the headsman only by donning black. Indeed, smirks Tyrion, father does fancy spikes dressed in skulls. Wine flows. Bowen Marsh marvels at the dwarf's bottomless cup. Blind Meister Aemon calls him a giant here at the world's end, leaving even Tyrion word-struck. By the hearth, Mormont leans close, escorts south. Rangers lost, fewer than 1,000 guards. 3 ragged souls for every frozen mile. "Speak to King Robert," he pleads. "Remind your lions the North still stands watch." Tyrion swears he'll roar the message, though Lannister roars seldom carry this far. How many winters has he seen? 9, and all of them brief. "Then brace yourself," growls Mormont. The long night draws near, and wildlings flee something darker than frost. Tyrion shivers, whether from prophecy or boredom, and slips into the bitter night. On a whim, he rides the creaking winch to the wall's frozen crown, finding Jon Snow with ghost, white fur, red eyes, watchful silence. They pace the ice. Recruits toughen under Jon's tutelage. Tyrion's road bends south. "Carry my words home," Jon begs. Letters for Winterfell, hope for crippled Bran. Tyrion nods, and Jon's "Thank you, friend" burns brighter than any hearth. They stare north across the haunted forest. Jon scans for Benjen Stark. Tyrion promises the Rangers return. If he doesn't, Jon vows, Ghost and I will seek him. Tyrion's breath ghosts into the dark as he imagines another search party chasing the boy, and for once, the imp's tongue stills. For what feels like years, Bran Stark has tumbled past clouds and memory alike. Somewhere in that spiral, the thought comforts him, until a voice, sharp as winter air, whispers, "And if you don't wake this time?" Beside him flutters a coal-black crow, 3 eyes gleaming like midnight suns. "Fly," the bird urges. Bran answers with the tremble of every child's protest. He doesn't know how. "Have you ever tried?" the crow caws back. He asks if the bird is truly a crow, and the bird volleys the question. Is Bran truly falling? Tears thread across the boy's cheeks. The wind steals them away. The answer is flying. Bran protests. Crows have wings. The crow counters. Perhaps Bran does too. Wings of a different kind. The ground rushes nearer. Panic narrows his world until the crow commands, "Look," and Bran sees everything. He sees Winterfell spread like a grey stone puzzle beneath him, stable hands cursing in the cold, smith's hammers ringing, the heart tree in the godswood watching him back. His mother stands on a rolling deck, clutching a knife-stained red. His father kneels before a king on a muddy bank. Sansa cries herself to sleep. Arya knots secrets tight inside her chest. Shadows stalk them all. One, black as burnt bone, wears a hound's snarling face. Another gleams, golden, beautiful, cruel. Towering above, a giant in stone armor hides nothing but black blood behind its visor. Far to the east, dragons twitch like sleepers disturbed. North at the wall, Jon Snow dozes alone, growing colder, harder. Beyond even that icebound line, past the shimmering curtain at the edge of the world, Bran glimpses the heart of winter itself. And what waits there steals the warmth from his tears. Now you know why you must live, the crow tells him. Winter is coming. Spikes of blue ice line his path, the graveyard of dreamers who fell before. Choose, the crow commands. Fly or die. Bran spreads numb arms and flies. Pain explodes between his eyes. The crow pecks once, twice, then shatters into a dark-haired serving girl. Bran jolts awake in his own bed. The woman drops her basin, fleeing down the tower steps. He is awake! A direwolf pup bounds onto his legs. Robb bursts in, breathless. Bran meets his brother's stare, calm as new snow, and names the beast curled against him. His name is Summer, Lord Snow, Sir Alliser said, like it was a joke that never stopped being funny. Enough. You're all useless. Go limp back to your cells. And you, Snow, try not to break any more of my recruits. They're brittle. They call me Lord Snow, Jon muttered to Ghost. Like I chose this name. You'll never be ready, Uncle Benjen had said. You're a boy, Jon. A boy playing at vows. The men of the Night's Watch. They are my brothers now. But I'm your blood, Jon had said. Benjen's smile hadn't reached his eyes. And still, you must earn your place. They hate me, Jon whispered. They hate me because I'm better. No, Donal Noy answered. They hate you because you think you are. They insulted my mother. And is it true? No. Then why fight over lies? You'd rather beat boys than teach them. That's not honor, Snow. That's pride. You don't understand. I had a life before this. So did I, Noy said. I fought for kings, lost an arm for a Stormlord. And here I am. Same as you. No different now. They're criminals, brutes. I was trained by Sir Roderick himself. Exactly. You had what they never did. And instead of helping, you humiliate them. You're not a leader. You're a bully in black. I know enough to say this. If you don't change, sleep with a dagger under your pillow. Tyrion's voice drifted in. Looking at that wall again, are you? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's past it? There's nothing out there, Jon said. Then why do you wish you'd gone with your uncle? I never said that. You didn't need to. And please, don't bristle at Lord Snow. Would you prefer I call you the imp? Make your name your armor, Jon, or it'll cut you every time someone swings it. Ghost stays with me, Jon said. I chain him during training. The others, they stay away. They're afraid of him. Then they're smarter than they look, Tyrion said. Something's happening beyond that wall. You've got a letter, Ser Alliser growled. Lord Commander wants a word. It's about your brother. Is he alive? Mormont said. Bran woke. He cannot walk. But he lives. Back in the hall, he found Gren. I'm sorry. Let me show you the block. It won't happen again. Teaching pigs to fight now, are we? Ser Alliser spat. Might as well teach your wolf to juggle. Done, Jon said, smiling. I'd like to see that. And the laughter that followed didn't belong to a lord or a bastard. It belonged to a brother. The small folk claim this last year of summer is the hottest, Pycelle droned, his voice reedy and thin in the oppressive heat. But I do not believe it. King Makar's summer was hotter still, and broke in its 7th year, leading to a short autumn and a terrible, long winter. Ah, I was but a young man then, forging my meister's chain. He paused, then seemed to recall himself. You asked about Lord Arryn, did you not? He was melancholy, yes, but healthy. Then suddenly, he was ill. He had asked me about a book, and I noted that something was troubling him. The very next day, he was twisted in pain, unable to leave his bed. I heard you sent away Lord Arryn's maester, Ned interjected. Indeed, Pycelle replied. Maester Coleman, I felt, did not understand the older body. He was endangering Lord Arryn's life with his purging potions. Did Lord Arryn have any final words? Ned pressed. He called out Robert several times, Pycelle mused. Though I know not if he meant the king or his son. His last words were whispered to Lysa Arryn and King Robert. The seed is strong. Was there anything unnatural about the death? Ned asked, following up with, Have you seen an illness like this before? Pycelle sighed. I have seen more of illness than I would like to remember. Every illness is different, and yet alike. Lord Arryn's death was no stranger than any other. Lysa thinks otherwise, Ned offered. Grief can derange minds, Pycelle stated, a hint of disdain in his voice. And Lysa's mind was not the best before, seeing enemies in every corner. He could have been poisoned, Ned suggested. Poison? Pycelle scoffed. Who would do such a thing? I have heard poison is a woman's weapon, Ned replied. It is the preferred weapon of women, cravens, and eunuchs, Pycelle confirmed. Varys was born a slave in Lys. You should not trust him. Ned rose to leave, but Pycelle stopped him. Is there any other service I may provide, Lord Stark? The book Lord Arryn asked for, Ned stated. Ah, a ponderous tome of lineages, Pycelle said, waving a dismissive hand. You would find it boring. Nevertheless, I would like to see it, Ned insisted. As you wish, Pycelle conceded. I will send it to you once I find it. As Ned was leaving, Pycelle added, The Queen was not in King's Landing when Lord Arryn died. I am here to serve. Ned thought, yes, but whom? Ned found Arya on the steps, balancing on one foot. What are you doing? He asked. Syrio Forel says a water dancer can stand on one toe for hours, she announced proudly. You'll fall down the steps, Ned warned. A water dancer never falls, Arya countered. Then she asked, Will Bran come to live with us now? First he must grow stronger, Ned replied, recalling taking the girls to the Godswood to give thanks for Bran's recovery. He remembered the girls sleeping peacefully, dreaming of their brother, while he kept vigil all night. Bran will not become a knight, but he may become a lord, a counsellor, an architect, an explorer, or even the High Septon. He privately added, He will never lie with a woman or father a son. Can I do any of those things? Arya asked. You will marry a king, and your sons will do these things, Ned told her. That's Sansa, Arya grumbled. Not me. Later, in his solar, Ned found Peter Baelish watching the Kingsguard practice below. Who do you think will win the tourney, Lord Stark? Littlefinger began. Get to the point, Littlefinger, Ned said, not bothering to hide his distrust. 4 of Jon Arryn's household are still in the city, Littlefinger revealed. Ned was surprised. I thought they had all gone back to the Eyrie, with Lysa. Jon Arryn's squire, Sir Hugh of the Vale, is one, Littlefinger continued. He was knighted by the king after Lord Arryn died. I will send for them, Ned stated. Not a good idea, Littlefinger advised, gesturing to the window. There's one of Varys's spies, and another of the Queen's. There are others, some even I do not know. Send a man you trust completely to question them. Even Varys cannot watch every man in your service every hour of the day. As Littlefinger turned to leave, Ned said, Perhaps I was wrong to distrust you. Littlefinger stroked his beard. Distrusting me is the wisest thing you have done since you climbed down off your horse. Sam nervously explained that he had been told to come there for training. Pip identified him by his voice as a lordling from near Highgarden. Sir Alliser Thorne scoffed, saying they were now sending pigs to man the wall. When Sam returned, Sir Alliser sent Halder against him, and in under a minute, Sam was on the ground with a broken helm, screaming that he yielded. Thorne told Halder to hit him with the flat of the blade until he got up. Jon objected, initially stopped by Pip. After another blow, Jon shook Pip off and stated, "There is no honour in beating a beaten foe." Jon helped Sam up, which Sir Alliser mocked as defending his lady love. Declaring it a training exercise, Thorne sent Halder, Rast, and Albert to get past Jon to beat Sam. Jon braced himself, knowing Sir Alliser had sent 2 boys against him before, but never 3. To Jon's surprise, Pip and Gren came to his aid. The boys going against Jon hesitated, but Jon attacked. Jon soon took out Halder, though he took a damaging blow to his shoulder. Then he helped Pip take down Rast. Once Rast was down, Albert yielded. Sir Alliser left in a fury. Halder wrenched off his helmet and threw it across the yard, declaring that he thought he had Jon. Jon admitted that he almost did. Sam, his head bloody where his helmet had been split, came over and helped Jon remove the helmet gently. Sam introduced himself, and Jon introduced himself, Gren, and Pipe. Sam thanked them all. When asked why he did not fight back, Sam stated that he couldn't because he was a coward. Jon and his friends were speechless. Sam apologized to them, stating he did not like being a coward. As Sam left for the armory, Jon told him, "Tomorrow you will do better." Sam insisted that he would not. As they walked, Sam admitted that he did not think the Night's Watch would be like this. All the buildings were falling down, and it was so cold. Jon suggested it must have been warmer where Sam lived. Sam explained that he had never seen snow until a month ago. Jon led Sam to the wall, but Sam balked at climbing the great wooden stairs. Jon replied that there was a winch. Sam stated he did not like heights. When Jon asked why a boy who was afraid of everything would join the Night's Watch, Sam started to cry until Ghost licked his face, which made them both laugh. Jon started talking about Winterfell, revealing a dream he'd been having of returning to Winterfell, to find it completely empty. Jon always found himself descending the stairs to the crypt in the dark, and it was then that he would wake up. Jon asked if Sam ever dreamed of Horn Hill. Sam insisted that he did not, and that he hated it there. After a long silence, Sam told the story of why he was sent to the wall. His father, Lord Randil Tarly, was disgusted that his eldest son was so plump, soft, awkward, and squeamish. On his 15th name day, Sam said, he was escorted to his father in a wood, where he was informed that he was to forsake his claim to Horn Hill and join the Night's Watch, or else his father would arrange an accident. Jon found it strange that Sam told the story in such a detached voice and did not weep even once. Jon told Sam about some of the other recruits. Sam eventually stated he should get some sleep and plodded off. Jon returned to the common room. His friends explained that they did not shun Sam. There were places on the bench, but Sam was such a craven that he just passed them by. Jon persuaded them all to not beat Sam anymore, whatever Sir Alliser said. Rast, however, insisted that if Thorne sent him against Lady Piggy, he would cut off a rasher of bacon, and laughed in Jon's face. That night, Jon, with Pip, Gren, and Ghost, visited Rast in his cell. With Ghost's mouth around Rast's throat, Jon told Rast that they knew where he slept. After that, no matter what Sir Alliser did, he could not get any of the recruits to do anything but tap Sam when they were put up against him. Sam later thanked Jon and called him his first friend. Jon responded that they were not friends, But brothers, King's Landing boiled with heat, tension, and too many strangers. As newly appointed Hand of the King, Eddard Stark found little time to settle before facing his first crisis. Crime surged with the arrival of lords, merchants, and miscreants, all drawn by the Hand's tourney. A grand spectacle Stark had neither asked for nor approved. Commander Janos Slynt of the City Watch came pleading for reinforcements. Ned, seeing the truth in the man's fears, authorized the hiring of 50 new guards. When Littlefinger raised concern over costs, Ned answered with ice in his voice. If we can spend 40,000 gold dragons on a champion's purse, we can spare coin for peace. He offered 20 of his own men to bolster the watch, silencing further protest. The small council, however, revelled in distractions. Grand Maester Pycelle mumbled about the nobility of tournaments. Littlefinger smiled over brothel profits, and Lord Renly shared a crude tale of his brother Stannis, who once tried to outlaw brothels, only to be mocked by King Robert. Laughter echoed. Ned didn't smile. His thoughts lingered on Stannis, silent, absent, and unnervingly unmentioned. A man like Stannis didn't vanish without cause. Back at the Tower of the Hand, Ned turned to a dry tone. Lineages of the great houses. The very book Jon Arryn had obsessed over before his death. The pages bored most men, but to Ned, they held hidden meaning. Jon had searched for something, a truth buried in bloodlines. Jory Cassell entered, reporting on Jon's final movements. Most witnesses offered little. A potboy babbled gossip. A serving girl remembered concern in Jon's voice, mostly for his sickly son. But one detail stood out. Jon had ridden often with Lord Stannis, even visiting an armourer, and, according to a stable boy, a brothel. Ned stiffened. Stannis, a brothel. The very idea clashed with everything he knew. Stannis was hard as iron, cold as stone. He had survived siege and starvation without flinching, yet now he had fled the capital without a word. Jory asked if he would summon Stannis. Ned only said, "Not yet." Instead, he would follow the last path Jon walked. The truth, whatever it was, would not be found in council chambers or jesting mouths, but in steel, silence, and shadows. Through the crowded streets, past jugglers and pickpockets, Ned rode with Varley and Jax toward the Street of Steel. At a large stone forge near the Mudgate, they found Tobber Mott, the armourer. Polite at first, Mott offered wine and praise for his craft, boasting clients from the Knight of Flowers to nobles of Old Town. But when Ned mentioned Jon Arryn, Mott tensed. No, the former Hand had not bought armour. He had only come to see an apprentice, a boy named Gendry. Inside the forge's heat, Gendry emerged, a strong youth with blue eyes and a blacksmith's arms. He showed Ned a helm of his own making, shaped like a bull's head. When Ned asked to buy it, the boy refused flatly. "It's not for sale." Ned respected him more for it. When asked about Jon Arryn, Gendry recalled the man's questions: his age, his mother, his life. His mother, he said, had been a blonde alehouse wench. And suddenly Ned saw it. The black hair, the blue eyes, the heavy jaw. Gendry was Robert's son, a bastard, but undeniably royal. Who had paid for the boy's apprenticeship? Mott hesitated, then confessed. A mysterious lord had paid double and paid for silence. That alone was enough to make Ned's instinct scream. As they left, Ned looked back once more. Jon Arryn had found a king's bastard, and somehow that truth had killed him.
It all started with Sir Hugh, a young knight, hardly more than a boy, taken by the Silent Sisters after being felled in the joust. Barristan Selmy, ever the honourable one, told me he stood vigil himself. The boy had no one else, save for a mother miles away in the Vale. 4 years. Hugh had been Jon Arryn's squire, knighted by Robert after Jon's death. Was he murdered? Was it a Lannister bannerman silencing him before I could speak to him? The thought gnawed at me. His armor was new, made just for this tourney, worth a small fortune. Barristan didn't know if he'd even paid the smith. He paid dearly, I told him, the words tasting like ash. I ordered the armor sent to his mother. Barristan kept walking with me, his voice a steady hum against my troubled thoughts. He mentioned Robert. The king planned to fight in the melee. I already knew. He suggested drunken words are easily forgotten, but I knew Robert would remember. Some things he always remembered. As we neared the king's pavilion, Robert's roar preceded us, a familiar sound of his rage directed at his squires, Tyrek and Lancel. When we entered, he was complaining, as usual, about his armor, about being too fat for it. I couldn't help but tell him the truth. It wasn't the boys. He was too big for his breeches and his armor. He feigned anger, of course, telling me not to call my king fat. Then sent the lads off on a fool's errand, to find Sir Aaron Santagar for a breastplate stretcher. The boys ran off, and Robert and Barristan laughed. Even I couldn't help but smile at the image of them asking for a non-existent device. The king's woes, I asked, almost as an afterthought. If those squires were Lannisters. He admitted they were. Too many Lannisters around him, I thought, too many. I pushed the thought aside for a moment and brought up the angry words between him and Cersei. That opened the floodgates. He raged about her audacity, daring to tell him he shouldn't fight in the melee. Lyanna wouldn't have done such a thing, he roared. I had to set him straight. You didn't really know Lyanna, Robert. She would have told you you had no business fighting in the melee. He scoffed, claiming he still had juices running in his veins, unlike me. Barristan, ever loyal, tried to interject, assuring him no man would dare strike a king in the melee. Robert was furious. He sent Barristan away, but ordered me to stay, to drink. He began to lament the king, my old friend. He said he was never so alive as when he was winning the throne, and never so dead as after it was won. He declared that I, or Jon, should have been king. I reminded him he had the best claim. He didn't want to marry after Lyanna's death, he said. It was Jon who suggested Cersei, beautiful, he admitted, but cold. He even apologized for Sansa's direwolf, admitting Joffrey lied. He dreams, he said, of giving up the crown, of becoming a sellsword in the free cities. But the thought of Joffrey on the throne, with Cersei whispering in his ear, stopped him cold. How, he asked me, could he have made a son like Joffrey? My answer was hollow. He's only a boy. Jon often despaired of you when you were a child. He conceded the point, claiming he turned into a good king. When I didn't respond, he pressed. At least say I'm a better king than Aerys. I admitted the truth in that. He insisted we still had many years to set things right, to make him a good ruler. Changing the subject, he asked who I thought would win the joust. He praised the Knight of Flowers, a son to be proud of, and recounted the story of how the young knight unhorsed Jaime Lannister. Then he mentioned Renly, and how he'd spoken of the Knight of Flowers' lovely 14-year-old sister, Marjorie. A day at the tourney and a night of revelations. Breakfast the next morning, and it was like old times. Robert spoke of our boyhoods, and the stories brought a smile to my face. This was the Robert I grew up with. If I could prove my accusations, this man would listen. The thought of Cersei and Jaime's downfall made the food taste better. I felt better than I had in a long time. At the tourney, I sat with Sansa. Littlefinger, ever the opportunist, bet against the Hound, claiming a dog wouldn't bite the hand that feeds it. He lost, of course. The Hound unhorsed Jaime Lannister after a near miss in the first pass. Sansa, beaming, claimed she knew the Hound would win. Littlefinger, ever the showman, asked her who would win the next match. By the time they led a dazed, helmet-mangled Jaime from the field, Sir Gregor Clegane was in position. The biggest man I'd ever seen, even dwarfing Hodor. A man of ill repute, dashed in the skull of the infant Aegon Targaryen, boasted of raping and murdering his mother, Princess Elia. Rumours swirled about the queer circumstances surrounding the deaths of 2 wives, a sister, his father, and the burning of his brother's face. His opponent was the slim, elegantly armoured Knight of Flowers, Sir Loras Tyrell, with a cape of woven flowers. Sansa, captivated, asked me to ensure he wasn't hurt. I assured her the lances were designed to break, to prevent injury, but I couldn't help but think of Sir Hugh. Gregor struggled mightily with his stallion, while Loras, on his mare, demonstrated masterful horsemanship. When the pass began, Clegane's mount immediately broke into a hard gallop, while Loras's mare charged smoothly. They met, Gregor still fighting his horse, his shield, his lance. Sir Loras's lance struck Gregor perfectly, sending him and his mount down. His lance wasn't even broken. The crowd roared as he raised his visor in victory. Gregor rose in a fury, demanding his sword. He nearly beheaded his horse with a single blow. Then he strode towards Sir Loras, sending him to the ground with his first strike. He was about to deliver a killing blow when the hound interceded. Gregor aimed blow after blow at his brother's head, but the hound blocked each one, staying on the defensive. He dropped to his knee when he heard the king's voice booming over the crowd. Gregor's last blow whistled through the air, and then finally he came to his senses, dropped his sword, glared at King Robert, and stormed off. In gratitude, Sir Loras forfeited the championship to the hound, ending the joust. The crowd, for the first time in his life, cheered for the hound. Heading towards the archery field, Littlefinger, with that knowing smirk of his, pointed out that Sir Loras must have known his mare was in heat, and that such a thing would disrupt Sir Gregor's stallion. A boy named Angai won the archery, and I sent Alan to offer him a position in my guard, but he refused. Thoros of Myr, with his flaming sword, won the melee, a grueling 3-hour affair with nearly 40 men. I was pleased Robert hadn't taken part. That night at the feast, I felt more hopeful than I had in a long while. Robert was in good humour, the Lannisters were nowhere in sight, and even my daughters were behaving. Sansa actually spoke pleasantly to Arya, even asking about her dancing. Arya, gleeful, explained she was sore all over and showed a nasty bruise on her leg. Sansa, predictably, declared Arya must be a terrible dancer. Later, I examined Arya's bruise myself while she stood on one leg, an exercise she'd improved at. I asked if Syrio Forel was being too hard on her. "Every hurt is a lesson," she replied, "and every lesson makes you better." I was concerned, despite Syrio's excellent reputation, and the Bravosi style suiting her slim blade. I recalled finding her wandering the castle blindfolded, Syrio teaching her to see with her ears, nose and skin. She'd been practicing spins and backflips. I offered to have someone else take over, but Arya insisted she wanted Syrio. I knew any decent master-at-arms could teach her the basics without the blindfolds and cartwheels, but there was no use arguing with Arya. I returned to my solar, my thoughts a swirling tide of what I'd learned. I took out the dagger, wondering why Tyrion or anyone would want Bran dead. I was sure Bran's fall was linked to Jon Arryn's death, but the truth eluded me. Jory was still searching the whorehouses. I was certain Gendry was a bastard son of Robert's. There was Edric Storm too, a bastard Robert was forced to recognise because his mother was highborn. I remembered Robert's first child, from when he was still a boy himself. Still, no bastard could threaten Robert's trueborn children. Bastards have few inheritance rights. A knock at the door, a stranger, who turned out to be Varys in disguise. I was amazed. I'd never seen him in anything but silk, velvet and perfume. Now, coarse-spun clothes, mud-caked boots, and the smell of sweat. I exclaimed I never would have recognised him. He said that was good. He'd rather the Queen's spies didn't know about our meeting either. A web of deceit. Varys revealed the Lannisters had hoped to kill Robert during the melee. When I asked why Cersei would forbid Robert to compete if she planned to have him killed, Varys pointed out that the surest way to make Robert compete would be to forbid it. I was furious Varys hadn't told me, but soon admitted I would have gone straight to Robert, who would have fought to show his enemies he didn't fear them. Varys explained that there are 2 sorts of people in the Red Keep: those loyal to the realm and those loyal only to themselves. He said he now knew me to be loyal to the realm because I dissuaded the king from entering the melee. Cersei, he revealed, feared me because Robert would never harm me, not even at her command, whereas Robert would execute Varys in a twinkling at the queen's request, since the king had little love for sneaks, spies, and eunuchs. I argued that Robert must have other friends, that his brothers were surely loyal. Varys replied that hating the queen and loving the king were not quite the same thing. Sir Barristan loved his honour, Grand Maester Pycelle loved his office, and Littlefinger loved Littlefinger. He added that the Kingsguard were a paper shield. Sir Boros Blunt and Sir Meryn Trant were the Queen's men, Sir Barristan was old, and the loyalties of the rest were suspect. I insisted we must warn Robert, but Varys reminded me that without proof, we would only lose. I insisted the plotters would try again, and Varys agreed, stating that together we might be able to stop them. As he rose to leave, Varys reminded me to continue treating him with my accustomed contempt. As Varys reached the door, I asked how Jon Arryn died. A rare and costly poison, he told me, called the Tears of Lys. He'd suggested a taster, but Lord Arryn refused. When I asked who administered the poison, Varys claimed it was probably his squire, Sir Hugh, who now lay dead. After Lysa left for the Eyrie, Hugh remained and had the money to buy new armour. My final question, the one that lingered, what had Jon Arryn been doing that led to his murder? Varys's reply was chilling, asking questions. The sellsword Chigon butchered his horse. Tyrion Lannister tallied another debt, owed to the Starks. The mare, a gift from his brother Jaime for his 23rd name day, was a casualty of their forced march. Bronn, another sellsword, assured Tyrion that none would go hungry, but Tyrion scoffed, expressing his distaste for eating horse, especially his own. Bronn merely noted the Dothraki's preference for horse meat. Perhaps, Tyrion mused, his mare was the lucky one. Many more cold, hard days lay ahead for him. Turning from the grim scene, his thoughts drifted back to the bitter night at the Crossroads Inn. When they had seized him, Tyrion had restrained his guard, Jick, from drawing his sword, knowing it would only lead to their demise. Lady Catelyn Stark, her hands wounded, paraded her injuries, claiming Tyrion's dagger had caused them during an attack on her son. The inn's patrons, previously jovial, now clamoured for his death. With only Jick and Morrick to defend him, Tyrion, his companion Yoren of the Night's Watch sworn to neutrality, had no choice but to surrender. Catelyn, loudly and repeatedly, declared their intention to take Tyrion to Winterfell for justice. Tyrion, surveying the hostile crowd, observed that the situation was not as dire as it seemed. Of the 50 or so men in the common room, Catelyn had swayed barely a dozen. He announced a rich reward for anyone who reported his capture to his father. Sir Roderick Castle then ordered silence, a command Tyrion struggled not to laugh at, certain the crowd would ignore it. Catelyn sought assistance in conveying Tyrion to Winterfell, gaining several recruits. As they hustled him from the inn, he felt no fear, confident they would never reach their destination. Then, a hood was pulled over his eyes, and they galloped hard through the rain, leaving the inn behind. Dawn broke, and the rain ceased when they finally removed the hood. Tyrion's hope plummeted. They were on the high road to the Eyrie, not the King's Road to Winterfell. Any pursuit would be misdirected, and these were the lands of the late Jon Arryn, whose wife Lysa was a Tully. More galling than the abduction itself was the realization that Lady Catelyn had outmaneuvered him. The hood remained off from that point, and after the second night, his hands were no longer bound. Eventually, they barely guarded him at all. Escape was futile. The terrain was a harsh, wild expanse, the road a mere stony track, and the mountains harboured shadowcats and dangerous Vale Mountain clans. The clansmen identified themselves by their first name and their fathers, like Con, son of Korat, or Chella, daughter of Chake. Their lives were short and brutal, spent as bandits and outlaws. They were a poor people, their weapons and armour crude, stone axes and wooden clubs. They subsisted by raiding local villages, small groups of travellers, and would even attack the lords of the Eyrie if they lacked sufficient protection. They seized all weapons, grain and armour, and abducted women, married or not. Some women even participated in the raids. However, for centuries, The clansmen had posed no more serious threat to the lowlands of the Vale than these sporadic incursions. During their journey, Tyrion diligently committed the names of his captors to memory, vowing to repay each of them. A Lannister always pays his debts. His particular animosity was reserved for the singer Marillion, whom he blamed for the entire predicament. Marillion, oblivious, was currently searching for rhymes for imp for a song about their adventure. Catelyn, Roderick, and several others were discussing the Lannister pursuit when Tyrion interjected, remarking on the slim chance of them being caught. Curliket snapped that Catelyn hadn't asked for his opinion, but Catelyn granted Tyrion leave to speak. He explained that any pursuit would head up the neck, not towards the Eyrie. They would find no aid until they reached the Vale, and at their current pace, they would only lose more mounts, further burdening the others. This relentless pace could also easily lead to Tyrion's death, which Catelyn clearly did not desire. Catelyn retorted that Starks were no murderers, to which Tyrion affirmed he was no murderer either. He then asserted his intelligence, stating he would never arm a common footpad with his own blade. For a moment, Tyrion detected a flicker of doubt in Catelyn's eyes, yet she pressed him, asking why Littlefinger would lie. Tyrion replied that lying was Littlefinger's very nature, recalling how the man often boasted of taking Catelyn's maidenhead, a claim Catelyn vehemently denied. She denounced Tyrion as an evil man, but Tyrion countered, calling her a fool, and continuing that Littlefinger loved only himself and was interested solely in her for carnal purposes. Curliket pressed a knife to Tyrion's throat, asking permission to bleed him, but Catelyn again told him to let Tyrion speak. Tyrion then asked how Littlefinger claimed to have obtained the dagger. Catelyn explained that Littlefinger had won it from him at the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day, where the Knight of Flowers had unhorsed Jaime. A lookout's cry interrupted their conversation, signalling approaching riders. Catelyn immediately organized their defense. Tyrion shouted to Catelyn to arm him and his serving men, insisting she would need every available fighter. Both knew the mountain clans, perfectly willing to slaughter each other, would show no mercy to Lannister or Stark alike. Larys slid down the ridge, reporting approximately 25 men, milk snakes or moon brothers. So Willis Woad asked Marillion for help with his breastplate, but the singer froze in fear. Morrock instead sprang to his assistance. Tyrion pleaded again with Catelyn, emphasizing she could not afford to waste men guarding them. At her request, he swore he would lay down his weapons once the fight concluded, and she ordered them armed. Morrock, more skilled with a bow than a sword, armed himself accordingly. Bronn offered Tyrion a double-bladed axe. When Tyrion confessed his inexperience with an axe, Bronn simply told him to pretend he was splitting logs. Tyrion joined Marillion in his hiding place. Marillion whined that he was a singer and wanted no part of the fight, but Tyrion forced his way in. The clansmen boiled into view, armed with a motley assortment of weapons, and led by a towering man in a shadow-skin cloak wielding a greatsword. The knights and sellswords met their charge. As the others roared Winterfell and Harrenhal, Tyrion suppressed an urge to stand and shout Casterly Rock. From his concealment, Tyrion watched Bronn tear through the clansmen, cutting down foes right and left, while Roderick hammered the leader. Marillion shrieked when a rider leaped over them. When the rider turned, Tyrion charged, slashing the horse's neck so that both rider and horse toppled onto Marillion. Tyrion then buried his axe in the man's neck and seized the opportunity to crush Marillion's fingers with his boot. For the remainder of the battle, Tyrion kept to the fringes, darting out to cut at the legs of horses and dispatch wounded men, even taking a helm from one. Tyrion witnessed Jick fall, then stumbled upon Curliket's body and helped himself to the man's dagger. A woman's scream pierced the air. Tyrion moved to aid Lady Catelyn, even as a fleeting thought suggested he should let them have her. Tyrion struck the first man in the knee, and Catelyn killed a second as he reeled from Tyrion's blow. The third man swiftly retreated, and the fighting ceased. As Bronn helped himself to Jick's boots, he asked if this was Tyrion's first fight, which Tyrion confirmed. Bronn then suggested he needed a woman now, nothing like a woman after a man's been bloodied. Glancing at Lady Catelyn, who was dressing Sir Roderick's wound, Tyrion quipped that he was willing if she was. Surveying the fallen clansmen, Tyrion noted their thin, ragged appearance and unimpressive weapons. The leader in the shadowskin cloak, now divested of it, was not nearly as large or terrifying as he had seemed, and his greatsword proved to be notched and poorly made. They'd lost only 3 men, the Bracken men-at-arms Mohor and Curliket, and Tyrion's own man Jick. Tyrion recalled Jick's bareback charge, thinking of him as a fool to the very end. Willis urged a hasty departure before more clansmen arrived, but Catelyn wished to pause and bury the dead. When Willis pointed out the stony soil made graves impossible, Catelyn suggested gathering stones for cairns. Bronn told Catelyn she could do as she liked, but he and Chigan had better things to do than pile rocks, such as breathing. When Roderick concurred with Bronn, an angry Catelyn conceded, and they rode on. Now, there were plenty of horses. As Tyrion mounted Jick's horse, Larys demanded the dirk Tyrion had taken from Curliket's body, but Catelyn intervened, telling them to give him back his axe as well. Tyrion was pleased to learn that Marillion the singer had broken several ribs, 4 fingers, and lost his harp. He was less pleased to discover Marillion had also acquired the magnificent shadowskin cloak. The singer, for once, had nothing to say, and Tyrion saw him cringe when they heard shadowcats fighting over the bodies they had left behind. Tyrion trotted up to the singer, taunting that craven rhymed nicely with raven. Then he rode alongside Lady Catelyn. Picking up their earlier conversation, Tyrion pointed out a serious flaw in Littlefinger's story. He never bets against his family. Her knees scabbed from countless tumbles, and half-healed scratches crisscrossing her hands, Arya found herself in a relentless pursuit. Her current quarry, a one-eared black tomcat, a wily adversary in her training with Syrio Forel. Catching cats, she'd learned, was a deceptively difficult art. Early attempts had seen even the plump kitchen cat easily evade her grasp. As she stalked the elusive black tom, Arya's mind drifted back to a stinging memory, the day she'd first presented her bleeding hand to Syrio. He'd simply stated she was too slow, a stark warning that her true enemies would inflict far more than mere scratches. The Red Keep teemed with felines, and Arya had triumphantly delivered every single one to Syrio, save for this particular tom. A gold cloak had sworn the cat was older than sin and twice as mean, even claiming it had once brazenly snatched a quail from Lord Tywin's very fingers. Arya had chased the creature relentlessly, losing all sense of direction within the labyrinthine castle, but at last she had it cornered in a narrow alley. The tomcat, quick as a whisper, fainted, attempting to dart between her legs. But Arya was quicker. She snatched it, pulling the squirming creature into a tight embrace. A triumphant kiss pressed to its black fur. Her moment of victory, however, was abruptly shattered. "What is that boy doing with that cat?" A voice, clear and imperious, cut through the quiet alley. Princess Myrcella stood at the alley's end, flanked by Lannister household guards, a stern scepter, and Prince Tommen. Myrcella repeated her question, her tone laced with disdain. "A ragged boy with a cat?" Tommen echoed her sentiment with an eager nod. Arya paused, her gaze falling upon her own tattered, practical clothing. Silks and skirts were hardly suitable attire for catching cats. To avoid recognition, she swiftly dropped to one knee. The scepter, her face a mask of disapproval, declared that Arya had no business in this part of the castle. Arya knew that the moment she spoke, her voice would betray her. The scepter then commanded the guards to seize her. Panic surged through Arya. She twisted free from a guard's grasp, darted around the bewildered prince, and evaded the second guard. A short, breathless chase ensued until her eyes landed on a narrow window high above her, barely wider than an arrow slit. With a desperate leap, she grabbed the sill, pulling herself through, holding her breath until she was on the other side. Her frantic rush continued, leaving her disoriented in the pitch-black depths of a cellar. The chilling thought of being recognized gnawed at her. She listened intently, but the heavy silence of the cellar confirmed no one was pursuing her. The Red Keep, her father had always claimed, was smaller than Winterfell, yet her nightmares often depicted her lost within its endless corridors. She resolved to count to 10,000, a silent promise to herself that by then it would be safe to emerge. The time she reached 87, shadowy, monstrous shapes began to emerge from the darkness around her. Fear initially seized her, but she quickly quelled it, venturing forward to touch one of the behemoths. It was bone, she realized, ancient and dead, yet she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that it knew she was there, and that it held no affection for her. She stumbled back into another, whirling around as a jagged tooth snagged and ripped her leather jerkin. She bolted, narrowly avoiding a larger beast, then dashed through the gaping jaws of another to find a door. She squeezed through the narrow opening into an even darker hall. A water dancer, she remembered, could see without eyes. Relying on her sense of touch, she ran her hands along the cold stone walls, reminding herself that all hallways led somewhere. Then, faint noises reached her ears, followed by a dim, flickering light. She paused, peering down, realizing she was standing above a well with steps spiraling downwards. Two figures were ascending the well, their voices echoing eerily. One voice, thick with the accent of the free cities, immediately caught her attention. Her father, she quickly realized, was the subject of their hushed conversation. "The Hand will soon learn the truth," one man murmured. "And what will the Hand do with the truth?" the other inquired. "Only the gods know," the first replied. "The Hand is not a man to put aside the attempt on his son's life. Soon the wolf and the lion will be at each other's throats." The second man insisted a war now would be premature, that they weren't ready. As they drew closer, Arya could discern more details. The torchbearer was a stout man with a scarred face and a stubble beard. Despite his heavy boots and steel cap, he moved with an uncanny quietness. He seemed oddly familiar, yet Arya couldn't place him. The man with the accent, however, she was certain she'd never met. He was grossly fat with a forked beard, yet moved with the surprising grace of a water dancer. "What can possibly be done to prevent a war?" the torchbearer asked. The fork-bearded man's voice was a low rumble. "If one hand can die, why not a second?" The torchbearer countered, insisting that times had changed, that the current hand was not like the previous one. The fork-bearded man remained resolute, asserting their need for more time. The princess was with child, he explained, and the Carl would not stir until his son was born. "If the Carl does not bestir himself soon," the torchbearer warned, "it may be too late." There are new players in the game. Stannis Baratheon and Lysa Arryn are rumoured to be marshalling their strength. Lord Renly and the Knight of Flowers plan to make Marjorie Tyrell King Robert's new queen. "And no one knows what Littlefinger is playing at," he continued. "But Eddard Stark worries me most. He has the book and the bastard now, and soon the truth. His wife has also taken the imp prisoner. Jaime and Lord Tywin will take this for an outrage." The torchbearer claimed that despite his considerable skill, he couldn't maintain control much longer. He agreed to do what he could, but demanded more gold and 50 more birds. The fork-bearded man raised an eyebrow. Surprised, 50 is a lot. Given that they are so young to know their letters, he suggested that if they could only keep their tongues, it would be easier. But the torchbearer dismissed the idea, stating the risk was too great. Arya followed the two men for what felt like an eternity, delving deeper and deeper into the castle's hidden passages, until the dressed stone gave way to rough dirt and timbers. After what felt like miles, the men were gone, and Arya, now truly blind and lost, knew she had no choice but to press forward. Eventually, she found herself knee-deep in stinking water, and finally, at the mouth of a sewer that emptied into the river. So filthy and putrid was she that she stripped off her clothes and swam until the cool water washed away the grime. When she finally looked around, the Red Keep, sat majestically on its hill, miles distant. Upon reaching the Red Keep's gate, she demanded entry. The two gold cloaks on guard sneered at her, mistaking her for a beggar. "I'm not a beggar," taunted. "I live here. I want to see my father." One of the guards, "Sof, I want to fuck the queen for all the good it does me." When Arya insisted her father was the hand of the king, one of them lunged to strike her. She deftly dodged him. Shrieking, "I am Arya Stark." Furious, "Lay a hand on me and your heads will end up on spikes. If you need proof, Jory Cassell or Vayon Poole can vouch for me." She then challenged the startled guardsman. "Will you open the gate, or do you need a clap on the head to improve your hearing?" Tom Arden Harwin led Arya to her father's solar, where he was hunched over the largest book Arya had ever seen. His face was stern as he listened to their report. He told her he'd had half his guard searching for her, reminding her she was not to go beyond the gates without his leave. Arya launched into her defense. She had been in the dungeons, which had turned into tunnels. She had no light, and she couldn't go back because of the monsters. Then, hushed, her voice hushed with urgency, she told him about the two men talking about killing him. They had spoken of a book and a bastard, and if one hand could die, why not another? Ned looked confused. Arya described the men and how they'd said the wolf and the lion would eat each other. Everything swirled in Arya's head. She concluded by telling her father she thought one of them was a wizard. She wisely chose not to mention knocking over the prince or how she'd squeezed through a window and found monsters. Ned, seemingly relieved, suggested the men must have been talking about juggling and mummers, adding that there were a dozen troops in King's Landing now. Arya tried to insist they weren't mummers, but he cut her off, stating she shouldn't be spying on people. He then declared that this had gone on long enough, citing the scratches on her arms and her habit of crawling through strange windows after stray cats, and announced his intention to have a word with Syrio. Their conversation was interrupted by the announcement of an arrival from the Night's Watch. Yoren was ushered in. Despite his stooped posture, ugly features, pungent smell, and unwashed clothes, Ned greeted him peasantly. Yoren apologized for the late hour, then remarked that Arya bore a striking resemblance to Ned's son. "I'm a girl," Arya quickly corrected him. Then, assuming Yoren had come from Winterfell, asked about her brothers and if he could deliver a letter to Jon. She was certain Jon would believe her story about the men in the dungeon. Yoren explained to Ned that he was there to find men for the wall, but also had other news that needed to be shared in private. Ned instructed Desmond to show Arya to her room. Before leaving, Arya quickly confirmed that nothing bad had happened to Jon or her uncle, and Yoren assured her that Jon was fine. As Desmond escorted her to her room, Arya inquired about the number of guards her father had. 50, he replied. Arya then sought assurance that they wouldn't let anyone kill her father. Desmond promised that they guarded him day and night. Arya observed that the Lannisters had many more men, to which Desmond confidently stated that one Northerner was worth 10 Southerners. When she asked about wizards, he simply said, "A wizard died the same as anyone else when you cut his head off." Ned Stark stood firm, a solitary oak against the hurricane of King Robert's rage. News had reached the small council. Daenerys Targaryen, the last visible ember of a once great fire, was pregnant. Robert, a man whose hatred for Targaryens burned hotter than dragonfire, demanded her death. "A child, Robert," Ned pleaded, his voice a low rumble against the king's booming fury. "Even if the report is true, much can happen. The mother might miscarry, or the child could be born a girl or perish in infancy." He scoffed. "I'll fear the Dothraki only when they teach their horses to run on water." Renly Baratheon, ever the opportunist, chimed in. "It was a mistake to let Viserys and Daenerys live this long." "Mercy is never a mistake," Ned countered, his gaze unwavering. "At the Trident, Sir Barristan Selmy slew a dozen of our friends, yet you absolved him and named him Lord Commander of your Kingsguard." "That's different," Robert roared, his face purpling. Sir Barristan was a knight of the King's Guard. And Daenerys is a 14-year-old girl, Ned shot back. Why did we overthrow House Targaryen, if not to end the murder of children? Robert's answer was a guttural growl. To put an end to Targaryens. Ned's voice hardened. How can a man who never feared Rhaegar Targaryen tremble at the shadow of an unborn child? Enough, Robert bellowed, his voice shaking the very stones of the council chamber. A vote! One by one, the councillors sided with their king, their eyes carefully avoiding Ned's. Only Sir Barristan, his face etched with ancient sorrow, spoke. There is no honour in killing an enemy in his mother's womb. With the vote cast and the grim decision made, Robert's attention shifted to the gruesome details. Renly, ever helpful, suggested Sir Jorah Mormont, a disgraced knight desperate for a royal pardon. But Varys, the master of whisperers, dismissed the idea with a flick of his wrist. Sir Jorah is unlikely to risk the Dothraki's wrath for the murder of a Khaleesi. Instead, the eunuch's eyes gleamed as he proposed poison, perhaps the tears of Lys. Khal Drogo need never know it was not a natural death. The chilling mention of the tears of Lys seemed to stir Grandmaster Pycelle from his customary slumber. But Robert, in a surprising burst of antiquated honour, denounced poison as a coward's weapon. Ned's jaw clenched. You debate an honourable way to assassinate a 14-year-old, he seethed. If you must do this, Robert, do it yourself, the honourable way, among the first men. Robert stared, truly astounded. Ned actually meant it. I will have no part of this. Rising from his seat. You may do as you like. As hand you will do as commanded, Robert snarled, or be replaced by a hand who will. Ned slowly unpinned the badge of office from his chest. Then good luck to my replacement, he said, dropping the heavy pin onto the table. I thought you were a better man. He turned and walked away, the king's furious voice echoing after him. If I ever see you again, Ned, I'll have your head on a spike. As Ned's boots echoed in the hall, he heard the council resume their grim discussion. Pycelle, no longer drowsy, was already prattling on about the faceless men of Braavos, a shadowy society of assassins. Littlefinger's oily voice cut in. We could hire an army of sellswords for a fraction of the price. Back in the Tower of the Hand, a weary Ned summoned Vayon Poole, his steward. Their conversation was brief, filled with hushed arrangements for their return to Winterfell. The depth of Robert's hatred for a long-dead prince gnawed at him. And then there was Catelyn. What would happen when the king learned she had captured Tyrion Lannister? Robert might not care for the imp, but it would wound his pride, and Cersei would pour poison in his ear. Ned decided he and his daughters would leave first. The rest could follow. After Poole departed, Ned allowed himself a moment of longing for Winterfell, for his sons. But the anger soon returned, a cold, hard knot in his gut. The kingdom was adrift, steered by a king surrounded by cravens and flatterers who would beggar the realm or sell it to the Lannisters. And then there was the unresolved murder of Jon Arryn. A ship, he mused. A ship back to Winterfell, even if he preferred the King's Road. He could stop at Dragonstone, perhaps, and learn the truth from Stannis Baratheon. The more he considered it, the more Ned suspected the truth was a secret he might not want to know. His gaze fell upon the assassin's dagger, a silent, gleaming mystery. Was it connected to Arryn's death? Could Robert be involved? He remembered Catelyn's words. You knew the man, Ned. The king is someone different. He called Poole back. Find me a fast ship, a good captain. Quietly, quickly. If we can sail tomorrow, all the better. A knock at the door. Tomad announced Littlefinger. Ned almost sent him away, but reconsidered. Littlefinger sauntered in, a smirk playing on his lips. I've convinced the council to offer a lordship to any man who kills Daenerys, rather than hire the faceless men. Ned's disgust was palpable. Giving titles to assassins? Littlefinger's smirk widened. I did Daenerys more good than you did, my lord. Send a faceless man, and she's as good as buried. This way some idiot will likely botch the job and put the Dothraki on their guard. Ned stared, incredulous. Littlefinger had supported the proposal, yet now he expected Ned to believe he was defending the girl. You are an enormous fool, Ned Stark, Littlefinger drawled, his voice laced with contempt. You rule like a man dancing on rotten ice. I have had my fill of politics, Ned stated, turning away. If you're still in the city this evening, Littlefinger said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, I'll take you to the brothel my men have been searching for so ineffectually.